broadcast for shooters, hunters, and gun enthusiasts. This is the Firearms Radio Network. This edition of Gun Guy Radio is supplied by Alien Gear Holsters. AlienGearHolsters.com.
Hello and welcome to episode 165 of Gun Guy Radio. This is the podcast that shines a positive light on the firearms lifestyle. I'm your host, Ryan Machad, and this is your weekly dose of positive firearms talk without the politics. So this week I'm joined by Weirdbeard, and we're going to be discussing the FAL rifle and the AK-47 platform rifles. So how you doing, Weird?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Ryan?
Oh, not too bad. So you saw the video. I actually sent you a text message earlier this week. I got to shoot the CZ Scorpion Evo 3 this past weekend. My buddy, the Mad Aussie, picked one up. And also got to put some rounds for the Car CM9, 9mm, and then a couple of AK-47 platform rifles. So what did you think? What were your initial impressions, Weird, when you saw the video of the Scorpion?
It just looked really cool. I was very, very impressed. And I'm also amazed at the pricing of it. That's just, wow, I wish I could get them in Massachusetts, but I can't.
Yeah, we were talking about that before the show. I guess they're running $849 MSRP, so I mean, you're going to be looking at maybe $800, maybe a little bit more right now where they're kind of scarce, but even the magazines are like $17.95 for the 20-rounder.
Yeah, that's just cool. It's a nice little rifle.
It's definitely something that you'll see competing with guns like the SIG MPX. Someone in the area where I live, they actually got the MPX and the Scorpion, and they said the MPX is nice, but it has the AR charging handle, so you're going to bring your face up from it if you are cocking it, and also or running the charging handle. But then also the magazines, I believe they're Lancer magazines, and I guess they run like $70 a piece.
Huh.
So I mean, if magazine price to you and ultimate MSRP of the gun is going to be a concern, then the Scorpion is actually a really good buy, and I really like the sights they put on it. The sights are really rugged, and you can pick them up really good, and honestly, I would just like to buy the sights by themselves and put them on like an AR with like a full flat top upper. I would run those no problem.
There's certainly something to be said about magazine price, though, because let's face it, if it's a gun that if it's a range toy, it's a range toy. But if it's a gun that you're running seriously or you're competing with or all of that, you're going to want a ton of magazines. And if you're shooting the gun a lot, you're going to be wearing magazines out. So cheap magazines is really important in the long run.
Well, and speaking of magazines, the other thing I had with the Car CM9, I haven't run the magazines through like too much. I've used just basically one magazine. This was the first time I really was trying to do reloads with it. And I noticed that the magazines, when not fully loaded, don't like to drop free. You got to kind of jiggle the gun a little bit. Have you ever run into that problem? And were there any things you were able to do to kind of alleviate that issue?
I want to say that my PM45 they all drop free pretty gingerly. That definitely never popped into my head. It could possibly be just because the grip is so small that you might be rubbing up against it a little bit. You got to kind of, whenever I eject the magazines on my gun, I kind of roll out my my pinky and ring finger a little bit just to make sure that I'm not getting in the way.
Okay, yeah, it didn't hang up that bad, but I did have to kind of like flip the grip a little bit, rotate it a bit to kind of snap the mag out of there. And it kind of fell out, and then I just jammed the other one in. But I don't know. I've never run into that issue, and when I'm practicing, like if you got snap caps or something like that, maybe those add a little weight, so that's why I never really encountered that issue.
I don't know. I would give it. I'm tempted to give it a try right now, but I don't have any unloaded car magazines.
Yeah, I'll have to look into it. Either check here or on Handgun Radio, and we'll come up with a solution to that at some point and share it on the Facebook pages. So, yeah, no, it was a great weekend. The car ran great. The CZ ran great. So looking forward to getting some more range time in with those really soon. And there are some videos showing them being shot on the Handgun Radio Facebook page. So be sure to go check those out. And then also, before we head into the main topic, be sure if you're doing any shopping with Amazon that you support the Firearms Radio Network. It really helps us get this content out to you and continue to provide some great shows. So it's firearmsradio.tv/Amazon, and that will direct you to our Amazon affiliate link, so it'll be much appreciated. So with that, we're going to wrap up the intro and the week in review and head into the main topic, the FAL and the AK-47.
Do you shop on Amazon? How about your spouse? Does your mom? Does your, company? Why not use the Firearms Radio Network's Amazon affiliate link next time you shop Amazon? Bookmark firearmsradio.tv/Amazon or click through the Amazon link in the right-hand corner of firearmsradio.tv. Get it? Got it? Amazon it!
So, Weirdbeard and I have been discussing for a long time what we like in rifles, and I have some weird tastes because I like some guns that probably don't function the best. Now, traditionally, Weird and I are talking on handgun radio, and because of that, we don't talk about rifles much. So if you haven't heard my thoughts on the matter, I'm not a terribly huge fan of the AR-15 platform. I don't know why I don't like the rifles. Maybe it's because I don't like the rifles with a bunch of stuff all over them, and that's what I tend to see nowadays. If I were to get an AR-15, I would want one that was set up like the early ones were, with a triangle handguard. I wouldn't want the handle that they have on it. I would want a flat top upper so I could put whatever iron sights I wanted to put on there. And then no forward assist, none of that business, just the smooth side receiver. So I'm not really sure why I don't care for the AR, but I do like the SKS, the AK pattern guns, particularly the AK-74, although I'm not a huge fan of the 5.45 cartridge, and the M14 platform, the Mini 14, stuff like that. And each of those systems have their quirks, and they must be accounted for. Some of the M14s can be somewhat unreliable in dirty conditions, as we've seen Ian McCullum from In Range TV show on his channel. Now, Weird is a huge fan of the FAL, and I don't have a huge amount of experience with them, so I figured it would be a good discussion to maybe talk about the two platforms and why we think they're cool, reliable, and useful rifles. So, Weird, what was your progression in the rifle world in terms of starting out with something, realizing it wasn't for you, and then finally moving on to the gun that you like now, the FAL?
All right, so my progression is one of the first semi-auto rifles I got was an SKS, just because it was cheap. I had my CNR license, and I actually had a friend that had one that I think he had it, he cleaned it, and he bought it a while ago and just never even cleaned it, so it's still packed in grease, and it had just been sitting in a safe packed in grease, and he just realized, I'm never going to clean this gun, so I might as well just sell it to my buddy who's looking to get one. And I do like the SKS. The SKS has got a lot of quirks and limitations to it, but overall, it's just fun to shoot. And one of the neat things about the SKS is, we were just talking before about magazine price. Well, it runs off of stripper clips. You could buy like 100 of these stripper clips for like nothing. I actually haven't looked at prices in a long time because I've got a zillion of the clips here, and I've got no need for any more. I could probably put 2 or 3 cases of ammo onto clips right now, and I don't think I spent more than $50 on clips. So it's just cool that you can just have your ammo ready to go for no upfront cost whatsoever. But again, the ergonomics are a little bit hinky on it. Again, you can only hold 10 rounds. You really can't top off the magazine just because it's clip fed, so it really doesn't work well with that. You've got to essentially run it empty and then reload it, or completely empty it. Also, another thing is I did I think it was a couple of years ago, I did take my SKS out to a 200-yard range, and the grouping it shot was not what I expected. It was just humongous. And this is at the point where I had my FAL and shot my FAL, and I was not really taking my time. I wasn't even going prone or anything like that. I was just freestanding and using the sling for support. And I kept things all in about a dinner plate, maybe with a couple of flyers and hangers on there. But and I was just shooting cheap ammo. I was shooting some like steel cased Chinese made 308 out of it, and it was very well performing, very, very well for me. So the SKS, it's got its limitations, but I like it. But again, because of these limitations, I decided, and because of price issues, I decided, you know what, I'm going to buy an AK. And it was also, this was after, I think, the first Obama election, so prices had gone up on the AKs, but it started coming back down again. And so they came back down to what I thought was a reasonable price. They'd gone up to like, you could see like plain Jane AKs for like $900, and that's just unreasonable in my opinion. I think I paid about $600 for mine. I originally started looking at it for $300. But I saw one for $600, and I said, you know what? I think it's time to finally get this gun that I've been looking at for so long. And I got a Century Arms built Wasser 10, so that's the Yugoslavian AK pattern, and I hated it. I just could not love it. I think we could talk a lot about the reasons why I didn't like it when we get to the AK side of it, but it was just I didn't like it, and so I ended up turning around and selling it and using it as the down payment for my FAL, which was another Century Arms build and not a particularly well done one. But if you follow either my blog, weirdworld.com, or Ryan and I on Handgun Radio, you've heard me talk about my father's old 22 that was restored by Wally over at York Arms. Well, Wally also fixed my FAL, and he did an amazing job with just let's just say Century had some parts left over on the table when they built my gun from the parts kit.
No, do you have any other experience with like the Mini 14 series or the M14 platform at all?
I've shot a Mini 14 just a handful of times. I've shot a couple of different M14s, and they're nice rifles, and that was definitely since I live in Massachusetts, getting full-size magazines is a bit of a challenge. And so overall, you want to have a firearm that's got a long legacy. So there's going to be a lot of magazines floating around, specifically military surplus. And it was the FAL and the M14 that were the two choices, because the magazines are super duper plentiful and you can get the guns in Massachusetts. And just the M14, it was all the ones that I've shot seem to be a bit heavier than the FAL, which, I mean, isn't a bad thing if you're, doing a bench rest. And I actually just like the raised stock better on the FAL than the more traditional dropped stock for the M14.
Now, what sorts of changes did you? Because I mean, the M14's a pretty standard. If anybody who doesn't know about guns would look at the M14 and the FAL, and they would look at the FAL as a dangerous, evil assault weapon, and they would look at the M14 as a hunting rifle.
Pretty much.
Just the matter of optics there, whether or not it's true, regardless. But in terms of like Massachusetts, what did you have to do to the FAL to be able to purchase that? Anything, or is there a mass compliant version?
So technically, I didn't have to do anything at all. Now there are assault weapons. So Massachusetts just essentially has the 1994 assault weapons ban. It just was never repealed in this state. Essentially, so you're allowed to have one quote unquote evil feature on the gun. And so with if I was going to order an FAL from DS Arms, I can just simply get one that has a fixed stock, and then it'll have a muzzle brake that is welded onto the muzzle threads, and then you're good to go. I actually don't like muzzle brakes much on guns, and the only time I'd ever really see a point to them is if it's a real heavy recoiling gun, and I don't see 308 or 7.62x51 as being warranting of the amount of like muzzle blast that's created by the brake. It just so happens that my Century Arms gun is actually one of the Clinton era ones. Actually came with the weird thumb hole stock that was actually terrible, and I got rid of that. I had Wally fix it when he had the gun in his shop. But So I could add the pistol grip. I actually don't know if the thumb hole counted or not in Massachusetts, but the barrel is just crowned off flat. And so it has no threads and no muzzle device on it, and I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see what these different laws require you to do with these rifles. But so we'll kind of get into the FAL here. So you have a little section written out here. You want to kind of start with that on the history of it?
Yeah, so the FAL was designed in 1954, and it was essentially kind of a before the ergonomic era of guns, where nowadays everyone's thinking about the ergonomics and how it fits in your hand and how it operates, and if you have to change a grip or have to move something around too much when you're shooting it. And that really wasn't thought about until fairly recently, but it's almost by happenstance that everything's really kind of in the right place on the FAL. The safety's right above the pistol grip. It's pretty much where most guns are these days. And it's only like a 45-degree throw from safe to fire. So it's actually almost like a 1911 safety, and that sort of idea is you're just kind of doing just a quick flick down, which is really, really nice and really convenient. And then the magazine release is a paddle style that's just behind the magazine well, and the bolt catch is in between the paddle and the magazine well, and that's a lever that you push up and down. You push it up to lock the bolt back, and pull it down to drop the bolt. And the controls kind of look a little bit, especially the magazine release and the bolt catch kind of look a little bit weird when you look at them the first time. They kind of look, especially with the metric pattern guns, the magazine release and the bolt catch look really, really small, and they're not usable, but they work extremely well as far as I'm concerned.
Well, and obviously, I mean, in terms of prevalence in the world, the FAL has been used by over 90 countries, and over 2 million of them have been produced. It has the nickname the right arm of the free world, and would you say it's probably the most prevalent small arm aside from like the AK-47 in terms of worldwide use?
I think the AR's got it beat actually, but I think after the AR, I would say it's pretty easily. I mean, there's just so much of it, and
even outside of the United States, though,
there's a lot of countries that use ARs these days.
Supplied by us, perhaps.
Yeah, I think most of them are American made, but yeah,
I know Canada. What do they have? Like the C3 or the C9 or something like that. It's produced by Demeco.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much almost every country that used to use the FAL now, or an FAL of some sort, with like the exception of like the UK, is using essentially an M16 variant. So there's a ton of people out there.
Yeah, I wish I could kind of. It's strange. I would like to see like a breakdown of the countries because I don't see it here in the article, but a breakdown of the countries because I know Argentina, wasn't it in the Falklands War? It was like one of the few times that the same small arm was facing off. Right, they were evenly matched between the British and the Argentinians.
Yeah, the Argentines had a metric pattern FAL. The British had the L1A1, which is the inch pattern FAL. Both sides were, as their sidearm, were using the Browning high power, and then both sides were using I can't remember if they were using the Sten gun or the Sterling for their submachine gun. So it was all the infantry weapons were evenly matched.
Yeah, that Canadian AR is the C7, by the way, the Colt Canada C7. Yeah, the FAL, and I like it because I'm not a terribly huge fan of the 5.56, as are you, weird. So I like that it's chambered in the 308. I think the 308 is a really, really good... It draws a good line between a full-powered rifle cartridge in the terms of like the 30-06 where you need that long action. It's a shorter rifle cartridge, but it still meets that full power factor.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was my general thought is, up in Maine, the whitetail deers, they run about, 125 to 175 pounds, and they're, roughly 6 feet long and all that. They're the same size as a human being. And I just thought about all right, what are people shooting at deer that are pretty much, dropping them, consistently? And I know some people up in Maine that shoot, that hunt with 223s, but almost all the people are using, 270s, 243 Winchester? What's that?
243 hurts. I don't like 243 at all.
Yeah. 30 and 308, but 30-06. But 308 seems to be like the bench standard for shooting deer and having good, clean, one shot, one kill sort of situation. And so that just got me thinking of my FAL's a business gun. If there were riots breaking out or all that, this is the rifle I'm loading up.
Right. I know a lot of people up here use the 35 Remington. I've used that a couple times, and the 30-30. And the 30-06 is nice, but I mean, you're not getting distance shots that you really need that cartridge for. I mean, your shooting is generally under 100 yards. It's very wooded terrain up here and very hilly.
Yeah, but it's still pretty awesome at inside 100 yards.
Yes. Now, so your first one that you went with was a parts kit from Sentry. Have you done any others, or is that the one you have right now?
Yeah, no, I keep debating whether or not I keep debating. I kind of want to get another 308 battle rifle type of thing, and I keep debating do I go, and I kind of want to. I mean, I really want to get an FAL paratrooper. I want to get a side folding stock, but I can't in Massachusetts, and that just aggravates me. But I wouldn't mind trying to build one of the more lightweight ones from DS Arms that uses the aluminum lower receiver, and maybe something with like a flat top and some rails and stuff on it, so I can actually put a few accessories on it, because I've got nothing on my gun, which I tend to like my guns a little bit more Spartan like you do as well. But I wouldn't mind having one of those mag pull angle foregrips and maybe put a red dot on the top just for something to do. But also I'm kind of looking a lot at the Smith & Wesson M&P 10. That's an awfully nice looking rifle.
Now between the two platforms, the AR platform and the FAL platform, what do you see as certain advantages to the FAL platform versus the AR platform, and what do you see as some disadvantages?
I would actually say in a free state, I can't really see. I mean, the FAL's is got a gas piston in it, so its action's going to run a little bit cleaner. It's got the adjustable gas system, so you can tailor it a little bit better for your load, but you could also claim that might make it a little bit of a round for failure if you don't have the gas dialed up just right for your for the load that you're using. You could short stroke the gun, but the AR-10 style tends to be really, really light. It actually tends to handle the recoil a little bit better because the stock's even more in line than the FAL. The FAL's ever so slightly dropped. And one thing that I like about the FAL is I can get 20-round magazines all day long. I've got a dozen of them right now, and I could get more whenever I wanted, even here in Massachusetts, because there's tons of pre-94 magazines. But when it comes to the AR-10, if you can get one that runs off of the Magpul 308 magazines, you can get those things all day long for like $15.
I mean, I have had quite a bit of experience with the Sig Sauer 308, the 716.
Yeah, I've seen the videos you put up of that.
Yeah, I mean, we've ran it suppressed, we've ran it unsuppressed, and it shoots nice, but damn, is it heavy. It's a heavy rifle. Well, that's
the one thing is that's a gas piston gun, isn't it?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, that's the one reason why the true AR-10s are so light is they don't have that gas piston system, and that eliminates a lot of weight.
It's heavy, and the one thing I've noticed is it tends to the gun tends to like kind of turn to the right with the grip kind of goes out to my right, to my outer, because I'm right-handed, so it goes out away from me. But it seems to pivot in my firing grasp every time I fire. The recoil is straight back, but it's also kind of rotational.
Huh. And I wonder if is the piston offset? Have you taken it apart?
I haven't taken it apart. It's the Matt Ossie's gun, so I haven't really gotten to take it down. I've just gotten a chance to shoot it. But I was just kind of curious if you ever encountered that on your FAL or anything like that.
certainly never encountered it with my FAL, and all the ARs I've shot, and I've even shot, like I said, Wally at York Arms. Since he puts an auto switch on just about everything that he builds. So like the first time I ever shot 300 Blackout, it was in full auto. And it always seems to be really, really straight back and really predictable recoil.
I'll have to, in the videos, it's pretty noticeable. You can kind of see where it's rotating in the hand, and I'm not sure if maybe it's just that rifle or something, but I'll have to have him take a look at it. I've always been kind of curious about that. Yeah,
it'd also be interesting to see if you can get your hands on. I mean, either a 5.56 ARs. Just the recoil, the amount of recoil, it's just going to be so drastically different that they're not really comparable. But I wonder if you might be able to find someone that's got a true, direct impingement AR-10 for you to play around with, just to see if that feels any different to you.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I'd like to try that. Now, if you could say one design change on the FAL that we would make from like the original design, what would it be?
I would. I kind of wish the stock was raised up a little bit more, kind of more like an AR. I mean, it's one of those like so. One thing to look at if you take a picture of like an AR-15, and you set a ruler down so that the straight edge of the ruler runs to the center line of the bore of the barrel, you'll notice that it goes straight back and it goes straight through the stock, and all that. With the FAL, it's just barely touching the toe at the very top of the stock with that little bore line. With the AR, it's right through the middle of the stock, and that really does control the recoil a lot more. And the other thing is the FAL uses rocking magazines, and it's a minor quibble. They don't rock as much as, say, the AK, which again we'll be talking about pretty soon. But I find it a lot more intuitive to shove a magazine straight into the gun than to be doing a quick rotate, a little flick of the wrist to get it in.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that because I actually kind of this past weekend I also ran a couple AK variants just to with this show in mind, thinking about how would I run this? Is this easy? Is this intuitive? And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But anything else you want to say about the FAL before we wrap that up and head into the AK-47?
Yeah, no, just that one thing I have heard was I've heard some people say so in a traditional FAL there might be some variant. I mean, there's so many variants of the gun out there. There might be some that are different. There's certainly you can put like a single point sling on it, but I've just got a very, very bone stock L1A1 type design, even though it runs off of metric magazines. But it's essentially got a little metal ferrule around the barrel that has the front sling swivel, and then the back sling swivel is very, very traditional off of the toe of the stock. And some people have said because that swivel is directly wrapped around the barrel instead of up on the the forearm like most rifles, it can affect accuracy. But like I said, I was shooting offhand using the sling as a brace. And at 200 yards, and I was very, very pleased at how well I was grouping, especially since I was using absolutely trash ammo.
That's something we should probably talk about before we wrap up the whole metric FAL and then the other one. I don't even know what it's called, but what's the difference between those two, and should people look out for that?
I would absolutely say look out for it, is because so you've got metric pattern and inch and or imperial pattern. Essentially, are they going off of the original Belgian design, which was just, Belgium uses the metric system, or are they going off of essentially the L1A1 pattern, which was designed by the British, who, of course, used the imperial system, the inch system. And so the big difference you're going to have is a lot of the parts you're going to lose a lot of parts interchangeability, specifically the buttstock and the pistol grip are not going to interchange. What's really interesting, actually, is the magazine release. I really like the magazine release on the inch pattern guns. It's a lot bigger and fatter, and you can directly interchange. So, like, you can just go on numrich.com and buy an L1A1 magazine paddle and throw it on your metric FAL, and it's no problem whatsoever. But the big thing is the magazines. There are a million. There's a million metric FAL magazines out there. The inch pattern magazines are a little bit harder to find, and specifically, it's the Israeli magazines. I think most of my magazines are Israeli, and you can get them dirt cheap, and they tend to be pretty good, especially if you can find them packed in cosmoline. That's awesome. But the inch pattern ones are a whole lot harder to find, and same thing with if you want to adjust some accessories. If you've got an inch pattern, stock, you may not be able to swap it out very easily.
Yeah, I figured that because I remember hearing about that, so I just wanted to make sure that was addressed as well.
Also another thing just to note is the only people right now that are making brand new FALs, as far as I know, is DS Arms in Illinois. And essentially, they bought all the tooling from Brazil when Brazil finished making their FALs, and they switched over to. I'm actually not sure what the Brazilians are currently using, but when they switched away from the FAL, they DS Arms bought all their tooling. It's very similar to PTR in. Are they in South Carolina now? They used to be in Connecticut, but they moved away. Do you remember?
Yes, I believe they're in South Carolina now.
Yeah, when H&K stopped making the G3 rifle, PTR bought all their equipment, and so essentially they're making G3s on the original H&K equipment, but they're not H&K. Same thing with DS Arms, and DS Arms is essentially making Brazilian FALs, which are metrics. So they're making metric mags. So essentially, the metric FALs become the bench standard. So if you have an inch pattern gun, it's kind of the weirdo. And if you want a weird FAL, if you want to dare to be different, that's awesome. But if you don't want to go down that route, stay away from the inch pattern.
Excellent. That's a lot of good information. I'm sure people will be able to use that, especially if they're going to go get an FAL, which I'm sure they will after this episode. So now the AK-47 and the AK-74. So originally when Weird and I were talking back and forth on text message about what rifles we wanted, because I was saying something about I wish the M14 was more reliable under adverse conditions because I really want a battle rifle with a full power cartridge, but not huge and magazine fed. And I said, I like the AK-47 pattern, and Weird was like, I don't, because I don't care for it at all. And so I asked him why, and we kind of got into a discussion of what we wanted in a small, handy rifle. Obviously not used for battle for us, but just a small, handy rifle, kind of extend our range and stuff like that. And I do like the 7.62x39 cartridge, ballistically fairly equivalent to the 30-30 from what I see online and from what I've heard from others. The taper of the cartridge causes some problems in certain guns, certainly not in the AK-47, but in other guns. And so this past weekend when I was out shooting that CZ Scorpion, I kind of went out there knowing we were shooting some AKs. I believe it was an AMD 65 variant with the front handguard removed, and then a Yugo underfolder. And they were nice, but I found myself fumbling with the magazine changes quite a bit. There were quite a few times when I was trying to record a video where I accidentally didn't get the front part of the magazine properly latched up in the mag well and ended up locking the back part with the front part still hanging out. And so I could kind of see where Weird was coming from, and then the right side charging. So you got to flip the gun over and use the palm of your hand to rack that back. And I can kind of see where that's awkward. You definitely have to take it off your shoulder if you're right-handed. So,
well, not necessarily. Again, if you run it like you're running a bolt-action rifle, so instead, how I used to run the AK and how I run my FAL, if I need to work the bolt, is FAL is not really so much, because if I need to work the bolt, it means it's empty, and so I'm sticking a new clip into the gun. But for the AK back when I had mine, essentially I would just push in against my shoulder with my left hand with holding the forearm, and so that would stabilize the rifle, and then my right hand would come off the pistol grip, and I'd run the bolt handle that way. Essentially, very, very similar to how you'd run if you're running a bolt action rifle fast and not taking your eyes off the target. You can get it up there and work it pretty fast without that. But I do prefer a left hand charging rifle.
How did you do it with the magazine change? Did you use the new mag to hit the switch like you see all the high speed low drag operators do today, or did you just like do it with your offhand?
I certainly tried with the fresh mag to open, and I like that. And I actually do that with the FAL as well. Is just grab the fresh mag and bang it up against that paddle, because essentially the AK and the FAL have very, very similar magazine releases. But you can also just flick your thumb underneath, and the AK mag tends to drop free, not quite as well as the FAL one does, and then you can do what you need to do.
What were some of the observations that you found with the AK? Because I'll talk about the ones that I shot this weekend and what I didn't like about them. But what were some of the observations you found with your, what was it, the Wasser? Yeah,
the Wasser 10. The big thing I didn't like about it was the mag change. Again, I would so frequently just not get it perfectly right. Not get the front end seated deep enough. Oftentimes I would actually... The magazine would look in a precursory look fine in the gun, but I'd run the bolt and nothing would happen. It would chamber air because that round just wasn't seated high enough in the receiver quite. And then it's just kind of a night when you've got the magazine in cockeyed, it really doesn't want to come out as well. I don't like the fact that the bolt doesn't hold open on the last round. It's just so much better than having to run the bolt, and certainly being able just to look and see that your bolt is open. All right. And you can see, oh, my gun is empty versus I've got a stovepipe jam or I've got a 3-point jam or whatever's going on. The sights, I definitely prefer aperture sights, and I like long sight radiuses that especially come with aperture sights, and the AK has got an exceptionally short sight radius given the size of the gun. And the AKs are heavy for how tiny they are. I mean, they're really, really small, compact rifles, but they weigh quite a bit.
I will say I do not like the safety. I know it was based on the Remington Model 8,
yep.
that sliding safety, because it did hit. I'll admit, I really don't care if it's embarrassing or not. I'll admit the safety got me a couple times where I had flicked it on, just kind of playing around with it while my friend was loading up magazines, and I put one in, racked the bolt, thought I got it all the way back. I didn't realize the safety was on, but I was still running the bolt. The handle hit that safety paddle and didn't go all the way back, so I went to pull the trigger and got nothing.
Yep.
And, it's just, I haven't spent a terribly long amount of time on the AK platform, but that does kind of get me if I start messing around with the safety.
Also, it requires just a really, really deliberate act of, your hand has to come off the rifle, either your right hand or your left hand, and move that safety from safe to fire.
Right.
Versus, ARs, AKs, M14s. Most of your modern guns, you can just do a quick flick of a finger in some direction, and it'll take it from safe to fire.
Now, what are your thoughts on the 7.62 by 3.9 cartridge?
I like it. It's an intermediate cartridge. Again, I like a full power cartridge a little bit better, but there's nothing wrong with the round. I'm also like you. I'm not a huge fan of the 5.45 by 39. I've read a lot of horror stories about that round, and maybe they're apocryphal, maybe they're not great, but it just doesn't strike me as a round I would trust. But the 7.62 by 39 is a nice round. It's a short range cartridge. It really starts dropping off a cliff once. I'm trying to remember exactly where the range is. I wouldn't go too much past 200 yards with it.
I think it's a far better intermediate cartridge than the 5.56. That's just my opinion, but at close range, it's definitely a cool cartridge. It's certainly, your shoulder tells you it's got a lot more power at close range than the 5.56. Definitely kicks a bunch more, but it's very, very manageable recoil. But I like it. And again,
even right now, I actually just saw some prices online of you could still get 1,000 rounds of it for not a ton of money. So that's really awesome as well.
Now, if you could design something based on the AK pattern that you would like, what features would you want on it? Working with the 7.62 by 3.9, because we can't really change that parameter because, I mean, like that's the reason the magazines are curved. The cartridge has a massive taper to it. And also that's the reason that you see the ARs that are not specifically designed for the 7.62 by 3.9 cartridge. I've heard they run into quite a few problems.
Yeah.
Because of that, like the magwell and stuff, compatibility like that. So what would you want to see in an AK platform that you would actually kind of be like, okay, well, I could probably live with that?
Definitely just a huge bonus would be a straight in and out, magazine. So essentially like an AR where it goes straight into the magwell and then locks into place. And then you can have the paddle, you can have a button mag release. It doesn't really matter. A safety that was more like, is it the galley? What's the Israeli?
Oh, the Galil.
Yeah, the Galil. They've got the little thumb flick safety added onto the other side of the big standard safety.
Well,
that's not
even that or the M14 style safety. I mean, that would be a whole lot less engineering to do.
Yeah, anything that essentially you could do with both your hands and a firing grip on the rifle would be a huge improvement. And then a left-handed charging handle, and then put the tough thing about the AK is because you've got that rear receiver, and so people have put an aperture sight on the back of that dust cover, and there's even some people that make the hinge dust cover, so it's not going to lose its zero, but I don't trust it as much. But still, I would try to figure out a way to do a solid receiver all the way back, so you'd have a solid piece of metal real estate that you could mount your rear aperture sight, and then and you maybe figure out a way to work some aluminum and polymer into it to take a little bit of the weight out of it, because there's just no reason why a 7.62 by 39 needs to be that heavy.
Right. And the thing with me, okay, so the rifles I shot this weekend, they were decent. The first one I shot was a Polish PAP rifle, and that had wooden furniture with an underfolding stock. Now, the underfolding stock was all right, but the top was sharp, so if you catch it on anything, it kind of hurts. And then also, the getting a cheek weld on the rifle was just not possible at all, and it kind of hurt every time you fired it, but it wasn't bad. And then the AMD 65 that I fired had this folding stock that looked just basically like a piece of pipe with a T on the end of it. And that one was honestly kind of painful. Yeah, it was not enjoyable at all.
Yeah, certainly a lot of those folding stock AKs, it seems like it was more of an afterthought than an actual convenience for the soldiers carrying them.
Right. It was definitely a little bit easier to get down on the sights with the T1 because I was actually able to get my face behind the receiver. And the sights are really low on the AK for some reason.
Yeah.
But it was definitely a little bit more comfortable to get a sight picture, but not so much in the shooting of it. But I do like the Bakelite magazines. Me and Weird were talking about that, the ones on the 74. And if I were to get one, I would like to get the AKS 74U, but I would like it in 7.62 by 3.9, that short-barreled one like you see in GoldenEye.
Yeah.
That's the one that I would want if I could get one.
Yeah, I think definitely there's a bunch of people that make the 7.62 by 39 pistols, which you could SBR into whatever Krinkov type style you'd want. And I believe you can get, again, I'm not a huge connoisseur of the AK and the AK magazines, but I'm pretty sure they make the orange Bakelite magazines for 7.62 by 39.
I'll have to look that up because I really want to get some of those. So anything you'd like to add before we wrap up the main topic and close out the show?
I think you need to shoot more ARs. Because I'm the same as you. I started off as a caliber warrior. I'm not so much anymore. I've got kind of my own personal feelings, but again, if it was one of those like things were going bad and somebody handed me just a bone stock, either M16 or AR-15 and 5.56, I would not sneeze at it. It'll work, but
Right.
I like 7.62 better, either 39 or 51.
You're talking to the guy who wants to get a Steyr instead of a Glock, so I mean,
Yep.
I want to go against the grain, I guess.
But again, the more I've shot the AR-15, again, they've got the same thing. Again, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that rear mounted charging handle, though I have tested it, and with my face in a good cheek weld, it does not quite. It comes pretty close, but doesn't quite get to the tip of my nose when I rack it. So I do tend to like to rack the charging handle if I'm doing a quick mag change with my face down in on the sights, and it comes close to my nose, but I know it's not going to hit it. So you can do it without lifting your head off of it. But yeah, that's weird. I definitely like the SCAR 16 and 17 as far as a fun ergonomic rifle to shoot. They're cool, but oh my goodness, they're expensive.
Yes, they are.
But they're just awesome. I mean, they're just so light, and yet they do not translate the recoil to it. You can move the charging handle to either side. Not crazy about the fact that it's reciprocating. But again, that's an easy thing to get around. But they're light, and they're so ergonomic, and they're easy to take apart. And they're cool guns. I like them.
Excellent. So that about wraps up our main topic, the FAL and the AK platform. So we're going to head into the wrap-up section and close out the show.
Ballroom jeans, fire hose work pants, and long tail tees are three favorites among the men of Gun Guy Radio. Duluth Trading Company has perfected the art of clothing the manly man. If you want manly comfort that's trusted by these gun guys, go to gunguyradio.com/Duluth and check out the other manly essentials Duluth Trading Company offers gun guys like us.
So, Weird, I really want to thank you for taking the time to come on the show. I know we've been talking about the FAL and the AK platform rifles kind of off the air, and not really on Handgun Radio, obviously, but I think this was a good discussion. Anybody who was kind of on the fence about what they wanted to get might take a closer look at the FAL.
Yeah.
Now, where can people find you, and what other shows do you do?
So I've got my blog at weirdworld.com. I also am a host at the Squirrel Report and the Gun Blog Variety Cast, so check those out.
And the Squirrel Report is a call-in show as well, so be sure to check that out. What is it, Thursdays at 9 EST?
Yes, Thursdays at 9 East Coast time.
Yeah, you can listen there and then also go in, call in, and take part in the show like I did last week.
Yeah, you did. It was great to talk to you.
So excellent. Well, I really appreciate it, and there'll be links in the show notes for all those sites. So Weird, very much. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Really a good discussion.
Yeah, you have a good evening, Ryan.
Gun Guy Radio says thank you and proudly displays artwork and graphics designed by Ryan Cross of Hunter of Design. hunterofdesign.com.
Well, I hope you're enjoying Gun Guy Radio, and if you are, please consider going over to patreon.com/FRN. What is Patreon, you might ask? Well, Patreon is a simple way for you to crowdfund every episode of Gun Guy Radio. If you're enjoying the show, you can head over to patreon.com/FRN and pledge $1 an episode or $5 an episode to help support pro-gun radio like this. Also, we have some companies that are throwing their support behind Gun Guy Radio by giving some gift cards and gear to send out in random battle boxes that only go to our Patreons here at Gun Guy Radio. So, Alien Gear Holsters giving away some $25 gift cards, Works Holsters, $25 gift cards, some LA Police gear items, Duluth Trading Company, $50 gift cards, the Dupe Cannon Supply Box, Field Box gift pack, Gun Goddess, $25 gift cards, and much more. So get all that and more in a random drawing for our battle boxes that we only make available to our Patreons. So that about wraps up this episode of Gun Guy Radio. Remember to subscribe to us on iTunes so that you never miss a show. And please leave us a review there as well, gunguyradio.com/iTunes. please consider joining the NRA and the Second Amendment Foundation. There are links there in the show notes. And don't forget to check out the other shows on the Firearms Radio Network. This is Ryan Bachad, and I'll see you next week.
This has been a production of the Firearms Radio Network. You can find more information at firearmsradio.tv. Are you looking for an extraordinary daily carry option? Look no further. Car Arms is giving away a P9 with night sights right here on the Firearms Radio Network. It's Car's EDC drawing. To enter, simply become a Patreon of any Firearms Radio Network show. Current patrons are automatically entered. But wait, there's more. Keybar, Hellbent holsters, Alien Gear holsters, Precision Ear, and more have ponied up to enhance your EDC loadout. See all of these awesome prizes and more ways to enter at firearmsradio.tv/EDC.